Welcome everybody to the second video of this series. We are going to go over how to set the a SharePoint group in the library permissions only. Okay. For this, you're going to need your flow, right? So, is this the right one? Nope, this is item level. Okay. So, here is here's our flow for our library level, and this is what we're going to build. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this off to the side, and I'm going to use this as a reference because obviously I don't have it memorized. So we'll go through step by step. Okay. Take these off the screen. Just give me a second to get set up here. Alright, so I open up PowerAutomate, and we're going to go create instant cloud flow. We're going to give it a name. We'll call this, yes, I know I made it in the video, Perms SharePoint group. Okay. Now you'll notice in the triggers here, there's no PowerApps by itself. They depreciated it and then took it off the list completely. Now you can get the regular PowerApps trigger back, but the only way you can get access to it is if you do it through PowerApps. You open up PowerApps and then you can you go to the PowerAutomate flow part, which I'll show you that towards the end of this video so you can see it. Okay. So you click PowerApp v2 and you create. Okay, as you can see, our PowerApp step came up, our trigger came up. Now, I actually like the V2 connector better than the regular one because it has one feature that the other one didn't have. You could add inputs, which equates to variables. Okay, so you don't actually have to bring in as much variables as you want to. Okay, so under that step, I brought in 5 variables. Okay. So the first one. Now, when you're creating these inputs, you have to specify the type of data it is. Okay, so if it's a number and you try to bring letters in, it's not going to allow it. If you're doing for yes, no, if you're doing anything other than true or false or yes or no, it's not going to work. You got dates. You know, if you're trying to pass a date into a date field, or if you try to pass anything but a date in a date field, it's not going to accept it, so on and so forth. Okay, so I do everything as text most of the time. It just simplifies it. Okay, so the first one is I want to pull in my site URL, right? Because I'm going to use that later on in the app. Okay. Now you don't have to put anything in the second box if you don't want to. Okay. Sometimes when we're doing this is the equivalent as asking PowerApps. Okay, so you don't have any input for those, right? Because it gets pushed to flow from PowerApps, and that's what's going to happen here. All these things we push to PowerApps is going to get pushed into this step right here. Okay, so let's add another input. So we're going to do 5 of them. Next one is going to be your library, right? So we're going to go. We'll just call it library. Okay. Another one we're going to do is, what is our SharePoint group name? So I'm going to go SharePoint group name. Oops. Name. Okay. The next one is, what is the name of our permission level that we're going to assign as a custom, right? The custom one we made, it's not going to know what it is, so we got to specify it. So we're going to add that here. So I'll call that internal. Anyway, I'll just select the whole thing. perm level name. Okay. The next one's going to be, and final one, type of access, right? You know, we selected if it's a user, if it's a approver or an owner. That's our level of access, okay? Now, once you're done with that, that is your step. Boom, close it up, okay? Now, I found out later in the process that I added this step later on, but we got to get the ID of our library. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think we need an ID anymore. Oh, for this we do, right? Okay, it's the item one we don't need it for, the library. But the library build we do, because we're going to use a action called grant access to library later on in this flow, and you're going to need this ID, okay? So we're going to do an HTTP call to SharePoint first. So just type in HTTP. Now we're doing a lot of API calls in this to make it work. Okay, so we're going to get comfortable with it. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our site URL variable, right? You don't want to have to retype the same thing over and over and over, right? That's what the variable's for. That way, if it changes radically in this thing up here, it'll automatically filter down to this. All right. Now we are receiving data, so we're going to use the get method. Okay. If we're pushing stuff to SharePoint, you use a post method or a patch method. But post overwrites, patch just merges. Okay. So our URI we're going to use is we need to identify the library we're getting, right? So you're going to put in I'm not trying to rewrite everything, so I'm copying and pasting. There we go. AP_API/web/list/get by title. Okay. And then since we have our dynamic content down here, library, now make sure you don't forget you put your single quotes around the library dynamic content. And then we're going to close it. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Now, as far as the headers go, you know, you're always going to use, anytime you do a get, you got to have some kind of method of getting in, right? That's what the headers are for. So put that in here. Content type will be equal application JSON, and accept will be application JSON. Okay. And then, of course, you probably want to rename your step so you know what it does. Okay. Now, the ID is going to be buried in the content that this thing produces, okay? So you'll end up pulling it out later on. Okay. Our next step is to get the privilege or the ID of your SharePoint group. Principal ID, I can think of the word. Okay. So that requires an HTTP call as well, because we're going into SharePoint, right? So we're going to do another HTTP call. Oops. Same thing, we're going to use our variable of site URL. We're doing a get. And this time we're going to use keyword siteGroups. SiteGroups means SharePoint groups. Okay. Dang it. Didn't copy again. Oh my god. There we go. See if we go to this side. just type it in there because it'll be easier. API web site groups. We're going to get it by name, right? And then our SharePoint group name goes here. Single quote, close it. Okay, there's no headers or body because we're just going straight to SharePoint. Now keep in mind that SharePoint group name, what you need to do is in SharePoint, so let's go here. We'll go into my dev site. Do its little fumbling around it likes to do. See, it keeps doing this for some reason. Alright, so you're going to go into underscore layouts 15 groups ASPX. Okay, you can navigate to it, but it's just easier to just type out the URL. Okay, now if you want to use a group, you've got to get the internal name of it. Okay, so like this name right here is not what you're looking for, because if they have any kind of special characters in it, it's not going to find it. So let's do, there's nothing here, it's got like parentheses or something. We're not going to use this group, but I want to show you how you can find this. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go, I'll go test group, parentheses, group, close. So if I do this and create a group like this, and create, oh, it's the quotes that are messing with it. Okay, here, let's take the quotes out. I know parentheses work. Alright, so we'll just create. Alright, so I created the group. Now let's go back to our groups again, because you're not going to see it. What you're going to do is you're going to look for the name up here in the URL bar. Okay, so when you open it, why is it not showing it? Oh, I think you gotta go to the settings of the group to show it. Yep, here it is. Right here. Not in the right format. Why is it doing this? I did this the other day, it worked just fine. There's an ID. This one, this is why I did it. Okay. Okay, so it won't work the way I wanted it to, I guess. I guess it just does it. It's supposed to put this in HTML format, but it's not doing it for some reason. So when you put it like this, it'll probably be fine. But if you got like pronunciation stuff up here, it's not going to work right. But like that space should have %20, and then the parentheses I think is %. I don't remember, to be honest with you. I have a cheat sheet I use, but you need to convert it to that. See how like these got these symbols up here? You got to do that with this. This is how I did it last time. Let me see. Oh, those are libraries that ain't gonna help me. But that's how you do it. Anyhow, let's go back to the flow. All right, so that's gonna be your group name, and boom, you're done. So here we're gonna rename this to get run ID, principal ID, and I'll put SharePoint group. And save that. Close it up. Okay. Now, the full control and read permission principal IDs are hard coded into SharePoint, so we're just going to make a couple variables. Okay, so we're going to come in here, type net, which is initial, or initialize variable. Okay, this one's going to be our full control, so we'll go full control. Or it's simpler than that. Owner, permissions, level, role ID. That number we're getting is called the role ID because it's a role, right? It's not necessarily a because you got two different kind of IDs here. You got your ID for your user or list or library, then you got your principal ID for your roles. Okay, it's your permission levels. Okay, so we're going to call this var owner. We're going to make it a string. You can make it a number if you want, because it's just going to be numbers. And for full control, that's the number for full control. Okay. And then we're going to come down here and we're going to do another variable for read, because that's a out of the box permission level, and it will never change, just like full control. So we'll come down here to name, put user. Ooh. That all up, didn't I? Why do I keep misspelling it? Permissions, level, role, ID. When you're naming these steps, just make sure they're unique names. You'll have no issues. There, user. Make it a string. And this one, okay, so we're going to copy the read one. We're going to paste it in here. Now you'll notice they're real similar in value. The only difference is the last number, 2 and a 9. Okay, but you'll need these later on. Okay. Now, like I told you earlier, we're using a custom permission level, right? Well, in order to do that, there's no way to know that number unless you go in and look it up yourself. But to be dynamic as possible, you don't need to do that. Make Flow do the work for you. Okay. So we're going to do another API call to SharePoint, since this is a SharePoint group. Now, if you had an M365 group, you wouldn't have to do this, because Flow could do it itself. But it doesn't know where your group is located or anything, so you have to do it this way. All right, so we're going to rename this to, it's important to rename them first, because in case you tie to it later on, you don't have to change the names and stuff like that. Everything, all this information is static when you pull something from another step. So we're going to do the role ID. Custom permission level. Okay, this is going to be our prover one, so I'll just put prover, let you know which one it is. See prover off, one I made. Alright, and of course you're going to go in here and grab your site URL. This is another get because we're receiving information, and we are going to copy. So we got to identify which permission level it is. So this thing wants to copy this time. Okay, good. Alright, so anything you do with permission levels, you're going to use the keyword role definitions. Okay. And then our internal name up here, this is going to be our permission level we're using. Okay. So we come down here and we're going to go into the variables. We got internal permission level name. Okay, and then we're going to put print single quotes and close it. Okay. Basically, it's going in there and getting the information about that permission level. And then you close it up. Now, like I said in the first video, I had trouble getting the ID to pull directly from that step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to store it in a variable. So we're going to go in here, create another variable. Rename it to custom permission level role ID. Okay. I know in mine I didn't rename it. I forgot to. So we're going to call this one var approver. Set it as a string. Now this is the part that gets a little tricky. Okay, when you click here, you need to find the get role ID for custom role permission for approver. You can click on body. Okay, the way I do this, it's a little simpler. You click on it once, it'll highlight it. Right click and hit copy. You're going to go over to expression because it's more. The body is the whole thing. We only want the ID. Okay. Since this is a string variable, you can only put that string in there. So you paste it in here into the expression. What you're going to do is remove the curly braces and the @ symbol on the front and back of it. Okay. Then you're going to go question mark, which means options. You can put a square bracket, single quote, and the letter lowercase d. You're going to go outside of the square bracket, and you're going to do the same thing again, but you're going to put ID. When the JSON gets pulled back from it, it's going to have a subset called D, and then inside that subset, there's going to be a bunch of properties, and then the ID property is inside there. So you're just telling it to go inside that structure and grab that information. Okay, and then once you're done, you hit OK, and boom, it'll do that. Now, when you go to save it and you come back in, it's going to be a green box and say d.id. And that's totally fine, because if you hover over it like this, it's going to show the whole thing, like that is there. Okay. Now, if you want, you can actually add a note here, since we did something like this. So let's go in here and let's copy this. Copy this information, so you don't have to actually open it up to do this every time. You can go in here, you can add a note, and just paste it in there, just like that. It'll let you know where you're getting that information from. And you close it up. Alright, don't worry, we're getting towards the end here. Alright, next thing is we got to check to see if the group exists, right? Because we're going to have to do that. If it does, we're going to have to remove the permissions off of it so you don't put multiple permissions under one one permission set, right? So in order to do that, we're going to have to do another call. So we're going to go in here, do an HTTP call. We'll change this to group exists. Okay. URL, same deal. Down to the bottom, get our URL. Doing another get. And then going to put this API call in here. And we're looking for a group name, so we're going to grab that. And then put our parentheses there, or our single quote there. So if you read across here, it says, hey, look in the siteGroups. I only want the title field to get returned, and I want to filter it based off the title. I only want to see the one that says title equal SharePoint group name. Okay. And then the only header you need is accept. Copy that over so I don't have to type it all in. So it's accept with application JSON and OData equals verbose. Okay. That closes that. Now, next thing you need to do, so we got that information. Now we know that whether this group exists or not. Now we're going to do with it. We're going to do a condition. Okay. The condition is going to determine whether any actions are done or not. I mean, we could do the actions anyways on every group, but it'll slow the performance of the flow down. There's no reason to run the things if there's no reason to run it, right? So we're going to do a condition. In the value here, in the condition, we're basically going to go to expression, and basically what I did is I went into this step here and looked at the D results, and I'm pulling in the length. So you can see body, check if group exists, D results. Okay. Now same thing, anytime you use expressions, I would suggest you put a note in here so that way you know what's in that expression, so you don't have to memorize it or have to look at it every single time. And we want to set it, we want the yes condition to say that the group exists, right? So we're going to go is not equal to 0, because if it comes back as no results, that means the group don't exist. Okay. And then what we're going to do is on the yes side, we're going to, the yes side's the only side that's going to have anything in it. If it's no, it's just going to bypass it and go on to the next step. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to do 3 calls. Okay, and they're going to be virtually identical other than which group they remove. Okay, we're doing a remove role assignment. We're doing a role assignments, remove role assignment. Okay, so basically we're removing a role from a permission group. All right, so we're going to do another HTTP call. We'll rename it. Okay, we'll rename it. It'll stay up long enough for me to rename it. Remove. We're going to remove the 3 groups that we use. I mean, obviously there's more than 3, but there's only 3 we're going to do. Okay, we're going to remove the owner permission from the SharePoint group. And of course, we're going to do our site URL up here. Now, since we're actually pushing stuff to SharePoint, we're going to use post. Okay? And then we're going to first part of the API call is we're going to get course of copy. And I'll just type it. I'm not messing with it no more. Okay, we're still doing the get by title. And then we're going to grab a library name first. And then we're going to do a role assignments. And then we're going to do remove role this. No. Remove role assignment. Okay, so anytime you do anything with role assignments, you're always going to have your principal ID and your role definition. Okay, so the principal ID will be your SharePoint group. So principal ID equals, and then we're going to come down here and grab our SharePoint group name. Now you don't need, since it's inside the parentheses, you do not need, well, since it's inside here, this part, you don't need any single quotes, okay? Because the principal ID is automatically going to be no, that's incorrect. I'm sorry. We got to do we need to get the ID from our group up here. So this step right here, we need to get the ID out of it. So we're going to go down in here and find our principal ID for SharePoint group. We're going to grab the body. We're going to do like we did before. We're going to copy it. Go to expression. We're going to Control V, paste it in there. We're going to get rid of the @ and the curly braces. Question mark, square bracket, single quote, D, square bracket, single quote, ID. And then we're going to save it. Then we're going to put a comma. And then we're going to go role definition ID equals. And then that's going to equal to our variable, whichever variable we're going to use for this step. Remember, we're going to use all three of these, but right now we're doing the owner group first, right? So we're going to put owner, and then we're going to close it, and that's it. So now, since we're going to do this 3 times and we're only changing one thing, I'm going to copy this. So we're going to go in here, hit copy to my clipboard. Now you cannot paste it into the same step you made the thing because it's going to get confused. So what I do is I go new step, clipboard, I grab what I copied, and I do it one more time because I'm doing it 3 times, right? Then I open my condition back up, and I'm going to paste them. I'm going to drag and drop them in. Great, you have to do that set stuff. That doesn't mean you can't use them inside your stuff because it'll name them uniquely no matter what. So now we'll just go in here. Let's rename them first. So this one is going to be river permission, and then of course I get rid of the 2 on the end. And then we'll come down here, rename this. And we're going to call this user permission from SharePoint group. Okay, we're going to open up the second one initially. See what it did, DID. Alright, so all we're going to change in this thing is this to approver. Okay, close it up. Open up the third one, get rid of their owner, and put their user. So essentially what this is going to do is it's going to remove these three permissions. So in theory, our SharePoint group, because it exists, is going to say none now. It ain't going to have any permissions temporarily. Okay. So now once it finishes that condition statement, now we're going to do our switch statement. Okay, this is the one that's going to determine which permission gets applied to the SharePoint group, depending on what we selected in that dropdown in our PowerApp. Okay, so we're going to next up. We're going to use switch because it's using a dropdown that they only can select 3 different things. Switch works amazingly if it's a condition that equals something, and you know exactly what that is. Okay, so we're going to go switch. Click on switch. So what are we switching on? We are switching on that drop down that's coming from thing, and that is our type of access. Okay, and there's 3 things that pop up, right? You got user, you got approver, and you got owner. Okay, so what I do is I come in here and I name these so I know which one's which. So we'll do owner first. Let's add a case. Now, a case is just a different response. Okay, these names have no impact on what it does. It's just a title of that case. And of course, I put extra J in there. Stick that out. That looks stupid. All right. And then user. That lets me know what each stuff does. Now, these 3 boxes make a big impact. Okay, it has to be exactly what gets pushed to flow for that particular variable. Okay, so this one is going to be owner. This is going to be approver, and this one will be user. I always name, if it's possible, I always name the case title the same as the response in here, so it's not confusing. Okay. Now, these 3 steps, these 3 actions that go in these 3 boxes are virtually the same, just like the step above it. Okay. So we're going to build the first one, and then we'll just copy and paste it 2 more times and then use it. Okay. Now, since we're doing a folder, which is essentially what a library is, the root folder, you're going to use the grant permissions to folder or item command or action. So you go just type in the word grant, scroll down a little bit so you can see we got grant access to an item or a folder. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is, just like before, we're going to use our variable for our site URL. Our list or library name is going to be our variable for library. And then since we pulled the ID out of the library ID up here, well, we pulled the ID, now we got to pull it in. Okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. Scratch that. That's not what we're doing. We're doing an HTTP call for this. I'm thinking of the other flow. The other flow does this. All right. So back up a little bit. All right, we're doing an HTTP call for this as well. So slide down here. All right. Again, site URL. We're doing a post since we're pushing stuff to SharePoint. And then copy this in here. Alright, so first we're doing is we're pulling in the library name, right? So we'll go down here and we get our library. Single quotes close slash. Now we're going to do the opposite we did the step before. So we're going to go role assignments, role assignments. We're going to do add role assignment. Principal ID. So it's literally just the exact opposite of what we just did. So we're going to go principal ID equals. We're going to grab the SharePoint name, SharePoint group body, click copy, expression, paste, close, delete, and question mark, the ID. Okay. And then row definition ID equals, and then this we're going to use our three variables, right, like we did before. So this one's owner, so we're going to grab the owner one, and then we're going to close it. No headers or body. And that's the whole step. Right, I forgot to rename it, so let's go ahead and rename it. I named it better on this, my original one. Grant permission to the library, to the SharePoint group. Read. Nope, not read. Owner. Okay, so that's done. So now we're going to copy it to our clipboard again. Add another step. I'm going to copy it 2 times. So this is the grant permission. Step. Clipboard. Grant. Open our switch command back up. Now I'm going to open back all 3 boxes. This one's going to go here. This one's going to go here. So I'm going to open this up, and the only thing we're going to change is this. And we want to use the equivalent for this one. And then this one, we're going to remove this and put in user. So now, let's go ahead and rename these. Actually, let's do this. I was going to copy and put, well, it's mostly there. Just gotta change the end of it. So we'll name this. Boom. We are done. That's the end of it. Okay, because remember, the whole point is to assign a permission, right? Now, this is important. You don't skip this step right here. Because, like I said, I ran into this when I was building it. I had a full control, approver, and read permission all on the SharePoint group, which basically essentially just still has full control. That's why that's important to remove those before you do it. Okay. So now that we're done, we're going to hit save. It's going to save the workflow. If I did it right, it shouldn't give me no errors. And it did. Invalid template for action, check user, this reference inputs, and a condition not defined in the template. Okay, I figured out why it's not saving. Alright. If you got to be careful when you rename this stuff. I think I renamed this after I set this up. See what it says here? Check if group exists. That's not what it is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that altogether. We're going to go back in here and go if group exists, click on body. It's always better to let it do it because, as you can see, I put special characters in there. And see what it did? It looks different now, doesn't it? Alright, so I didn't put another curly braces or anything in there. Interesting. Alright, so question mark. Oops. B. Now remember, this one's different. This is results. Because it's coming from a different source. And then I'm looking for the length of everything. Alright, what do I do wrong now? Body doesn't like something. Oh. Yeah. You take that out. See if that fixed it. There we go. Now it says length does not equal 0. Da, 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 da. Okay, so let's go back in here. I'm going to copy this. Since I put it in a note. I'll get rid of that. Add a note. Okay. Now let's see if it'll save. It should save now. I think that's the only one I did afterwards. Oh, okay. Now watch. Oh, it's the 3 dots. So I'm just going to take the 3 dots out. So let's just rename this. So I'm just put if group exists. It'll be easier that way. And then we'll come down here. I'll edit my notes. I don't have to do this later. It uses dots for properties, so you gotta be careful about that. Okay, so update. Now let's try saving it, see what it does. See, when you go to save, it validates every step to make sure you did it right. Okay, so now it passed. All right. So that's how you build the flow. In my next video, I'm going to show you how to do, this is the library level. Okay, so let's check it out a little bit. This is what it looks like when you build the library level. Okay. Like I said, it's a single action flow. Okay, so once it goes through it, it's done and it's over. Okay. With the item level, it has to cycle through all the items in the library. So you need to do. We're gonna use apply to all step, but essentially the same actions happen, except we do it at an item level versus the library level. So I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.